The wind howled through the empty street as 36-year-old Daniel Hayes slammed his apartment door against the storm. He almost didn't hear the knock. A faint, shaky sound. Once, then again. When he opened the door, a woman stood there, soaked to the skin, her lips trembling. "Please," she whispered. "My car broke down. I just need to warm up." He hesitated. Strangers in this part of town never meant good news. But something in her eyes made him step aside. That single act of kindness would change everything he thought he knew about mercy, power, and justice. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. The storm was brutal that night. Wind slashing through the city like it was punishing every piece of steel and glass that dared to stand tall. Daniel Hayes had just been fired. His toolbox still sat by the door, and his company badge, Maintenance Department, Arcadia Tech, lay broken in half on the counter. The irony burned in his chest. He'd given 6 years to that place, working overtime shifts to keep the lights on, only for a young manager to say, "We're downsizing. Nothing personal?" But right now, none of that mattered. What mattered was the woman standing on his doorstep. She was maybe in her late 20s, brown hair plastered to her cheeks, eyes sharp but tired, a white blazer clinging to her like it didn't belong in weather like this. Her hands were trembling so hard she couldn't even fix her coat button. Daniel blinked. "You'll freeze out there. Come in." She hesitated. I don't want to intrude." "Lady, it's 30 degrees and dropping," he interrupted, stepping aside. "You're not intruding. You're surviving." She finally stepped in. Water pooled instantly on the hardwood floor as she crossed the threshold. Her heels clicked, hesitant and soft, and she stood there like someone who wasn't used to asking for help. Daniel grabbed a towel from the shelf. "Here, sit by the heater." She smiled weakly, clutching the towel like it was her first bit of warmth all night. "Thank you. I didn't expect anyone to even open the door. People looked away when I asked for help on the street." He shrugged. "You just knocked on the wrong doors first." When she laughed, it sounded half broken. The kind of laugh that comes from someone who hasn't had much to laugh about. He poured her a cup of coffee, sliding it across the small kitchen counter. She looked around his apartment, small, tidy, and worn. Tools stacked neatly by the wall, a child's drawing taped to the fridge. "That's my daughter," he said, noticing her eyes linger on the paper. "Emily, she's 8. Lives with her mom during the week. She drew that last weekend. Says it's supposed to be me fixing the moon." The woman smiled faintly. "She's got a creative soul." "Yeah," he said softly, staring at the drawing. "Got it from her mom, I guess." The silence that followed wasn't awkward, just heavy. The kind that fills the space between two strangers who don't yet know they'll matter to each other. After a while, she spoke again. "I'm Claire," she said, holding out her hand. Her palm was still cold. "Daniel," he replied, shaking it gently. They talked as the rain beat against the window. She mentioned she'd been driving home from a late meeting when her car broke down. She didn't say where she worked, only that it was a complicated place. Her tone carried weight, like those 2 words hit a world of exhaustion. Daniel didn't pry. He'd met enough people to know when not to. Instead, he just said, "If it's nearby, I can take a look tomorrow. I fix engines, wiring, anything that moves." She raised an eyebrow. "Mechanic?" "More like corporate janitor," he replied with a smirk. "I fix what the rich people don't even know is broken." That line made her pause, just for a second. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition? Guilt? It was gone before he could read it. By midnight, the storm got worse. He offered her the couch, a blanket, and a warm meal. Leftover pasta he'd made for Emily last night. She accepted without pretense, too tired to resist. As she ate, Daniel leaned back on the kitchen counter, arms crossed, watching her. "So, what's a woman like you doing out alone in a storm? No offense, but you don't look like the type to wander." She stopped chewing, looking down. "Sometimes, people like me just need to remember what it feels like to be human." He didn't know what that meant exactly, but something about it hit him deep. Around 1 a.m., she finally dozed off on the couch, wrapped in his old blanket. The storm outside began to ease, but Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, staring at the flickering streetlight, his mind a mess of questions. Something about her, the way she spoke, the way her words carried a quiet sadness, felt strangely familiar. He couldn't place it. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was fate's cruel humor that kept him awake, watching over a stranger who'd stumbled into his life. By morning, the rain had stopped. She was gone. She'd left a note on the counter. "Thank you for the kindness. You didn't have to, but you did. People like you still make this world bearable. Claire." Daniel smiled faintly. He didn't expect anything more. She was just another passing soul. But what he didn't know was that Claire wasn't just anyone. Because by noon that day, when he turned on the TV to catch the morning headlines, her face was right there on the screen. Under a banner that read, "Arcadia Tech appoints new CEO following internal shakeup. Claire Donovan takes charge." His blood ran cold. The woman he'd let into his home wasn't just anyone. She was the CEO of the company that had just fired him. Daniel froze, staring at the TV as if the air had been sucked out of the room. The woman sitting on his couch last night, the one shivering under his old blanket, thanking him for kindness, was the new CEO of Arcadia Tech, his company. The same company that had tossed him aside like a used tool just 24 hours earlier. He replayed the image again and again. Her hair neatly pulled back, her voice calm and commanding, as reporters shouted questions at her outside the headquarters. "No comment for now," she said, before stepping into a black SUV surrounded by security. She looked untouchable, polished. The complete opposite of the fragile, rain-drenched woman who had knocked on his door. Daniel muttered under his breath, "Guess I really did fix something for the rich last night." He should have felt angry, maybe even humiliated. Instead, he just felt hollow. He didn't know whether to laugh or curse the irony. Still, a part of him couldn't shake off her eyes from last night, the exhaustion behind them. Maybe, just maybe, she hadn't known who he was. Maybe fate just had a twisted sense of humor. That afternoon, while Daniel was wiping down his old truck outside the apartment, a sleek black sedan pulled up. The window rolled down, and a suited man stepped out. "Mr. Hayes?" Daniel frowned. "Yeah." The man handed him a white envelope. "Ms. Donovan asked me to deliver this personally." Before Daniel could ask a thing, the man got back in the car and drove off, leaving him in stunned silence. Inside the envelope was a single note. "You helped me when I had nothing to offer. Let me return that kindness. Claire Donovan." Below the note was a business card. "Arcadia Tech, CEO office." Daniel stared at it for a long time. Part of him wanted to tear it up. Another part, the one that still believed in people, whispered, "Go. See what she wants." The next morning, he shaved, put on his cleanest work shirt, and drove to the Arcadia building. The security guard at the entrance looked at him twice before letting him through after a call upstairs. The receptionist smiled politely, clearly not used to seeing anyone in worn boots and a flannel shirt in the executive lobby. When Daniel stepped into the CEO's office, Claire Donovan stood by the window, looking out over the city. Her posture was strong now, her tone sharp, like the weight of the entire company rested on her shoulders. She turned as he entered, and for a moment, her eyes softened. "You came." He folded his arms, still not sure why. "I owe you an explanation," she said. He tilted his head. "For what? For pretending to be stranded, or for running the company that kicked me out?" Her expression faltered. "I didn't know you worked there. I swear, I wasn't pretending either. That night, I just signed the deal to take over. Arcadia. My driver left me after a fight, and my car broke down. I didn't even know which neighborhood I was in." Daniel studied her face. She didn't look like she was lying. "So, you're the boss now?" he said quietly. "Guess that makes me the guy who used to clean your floors?" "That's not how I see it," she said, stepping closer. "You helped me when no one else would. No cameras, no motives, just kindness. I needed to see that again, to remember what real people are like before I take this company somewhere better." He frowned. "Better? They fired half the maintenance team last week. Guys with families, people who built this place." Her jaw tightened. That decision wasn't mine. The old board pushed it through before I even took charge. But I plan to fix that. Daniel almost laughed. "You think you can fix what that company's become? It chews up people like me for breakfast." Claire met his gaze. "Then help me change it." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel blinked, unsure if he'd heard her right. She took a deep breath. "I'm rebuilding the operations division. I need someone who knows the ground, not just the spreadsheets. You were on the floor for 6 years. You know the systems better than anyone." He looked at her, torn. "You want to hire me back?" She smiled faintly. "No, I want you to work with me." He turned away, rubbing the back of his neck. "Claire, I'm a maintenance guy, not some corporate consultant." "You're more than that," she said softly. "You're the kind of person this company forgot about." Daniel didn't answer right away. His pride said to walk away. But something about the sincerity in her voice, something about that cold night when she'd looked small and human, made him pause. He finally said, "All right, but I'm not wearing a suit." Claire laughed. A real laugh this time, not the broken one from before. Deal. Over the next few weeks, Daniel worked closely with her, teaching her how the company really functioned behind the scenes. She sat in dusty workshops, talked to janitors and engineers, ate lunch in the cafeteria instead of the executive lounge. She wasn't like the CEOs Daniel used to fix light bulbs for. She listened. And slowly, something changed between them. The late-night meetings turned into long conversations. The walls of class and power began to blur. But not everyone was happy. Whispers started spreading in the company. Rumors about the new CEO spending too much time with the maintenance guy. One morning, Claire walked into Daniel's workspace, her face tense. "The board's calling for a review of my leadership," she said quietly. "They're saying I'm compromising professionalism." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Because you talk to your employees?" She gave a sad smile. "Because I believe in one." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Don't let them scare you. You're not the one who should be ashamed." She looked up at him, eyes soft. You really believe that? I know that, he said. That moment hung heavy, real, fragile, unspoken, and as much as they both tried to deny it, something deeper was forming, something that neither board meetings nor rumors could erase. But neither of them knew that the storm wasn't over yet, because kindness might have brought them together. But truth was about to tear them apart. The air in Arcadia Tech turned colder, not from the weather, but from the tension. Meetings became shorter, smiles more forced. Claire tried to keep her focus, but Daniel could see the pressure closing in on her. The board wanted results, not reform, and her decision to reinstate fired employees made her a target. One night, while Daniel was fixing a ventilation system in the executive wing, he overheard two men talking in the hallway. He froze when he recognized one of the voices. It was Mr. Langford, the company's CFO, the same man who delivered Daniel's termination notice weeks ago. "She doesn't belong here," Langford hissed. "She's letting a maintenance worker influence her decisions. The shareholders won't stand for it." The other man laughed. "Then we'll make sure she doesn't last. The press leak goes out tomorrow. The headline's already drafted. New CEO accused of nepotism and misconduct." Daniel's heart pounded. He stepped back quietly, hiding behind a stack of supply boxes until they were gone. For a long moment, he just stood there, gripping the wrench in his hand, every muscle burning with anger. They were planning to destroy her, using him as ammunition. The next morning, he stormed into Claire's office. "You need to see this," he said, slamming a printed email chain on her desk, the same one he'd pulled from a forgotten printer in the admin room. She looked up, eyes widening as she scanned the document. Her face went pale. "They're staging a leak," she whispered. "Yeah," Daniel said, pacing. "And they're using me as your downfall. They want the world to think you're protecting some lowly ex-employee because of a secret relationship." She dropped the paper, her voice cracking. "Daniel, I never meant for this to affect you." "It's not about me," he snapped, softer than he intended. "They're trying to kill everything you're building." She looked away, hands trembling slightly. "They'll ruin both of us. The investors are already suspicious. If this goes public, then we fight back," he interrupted. "With truth." Claire blinked. "You think truth works in corporate politics?" He leaned closer. "No, but integrity does. You showed me what that looks like. Now let me show you what loyalty means." Later that day, while the board prepared for an emergency session, Daniel gathered a group of reinstated workers. Engineers, janitors, techs, all people Claire had brought back when she took over. Together, they stood outside the glass-walled boardroom as Claire faced down the men who wanted her gone. Langford sneered when she entered. "Miss Donovan, I hope you understand that this company cannot survive leadership compromised by emotional entanglement." Claire's chin lifted. "You mean compassion?" He smirked. "You call it that. We call it weakness." Daniel couldn't stay silent. He pushed open the door, walking in despite the gasps. "Funny," he said evenly, "how weakness looks like staying late to fix what others break. How it looks like actually knowing your employees' names." Langford rose to his feet. "You don't belong here." Daniel smiled faintly. Neither did she, apparently. But she earned it. Claire stepped beside him. "Mr. Langford, I've reviewed the financial records from your department. I know where the bonuses went, the ones meant for the laid-off employees. If you want to talk about ethics, let's start there." A hush fell over the room. Langford's face went ashen. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. You don't have the proof, he muttered. Claire placed a USB drive on the table. I do now. Within hours, Arcadia Tech's internal scandal broke. Not about Claire, but about the corruption she exposed. Langford was suspended, several board members resigned, and for the first time, employees began to believe that change was actually possible. That evening, as the office lights dimmed, Claire found Daniel standing on the rooftop, staring out at the skyline. You could have walked away, she said quietly. After what they did to you, you had every reason to. He turned, giving a tired smile. Maybe I stayed because someone finally cared enough to fix the real damage. The city lights flickered in her eyes. I don't think I could have done it without you. You didn't need me, he said softly. You just needed someone to remind you who you are. She stepped closer, her voice trembling with gratitude. Then let me remind you too. You're not just a mechanic, Daniel. You're the heart this company forgot it had. The wind swept around them, carrying the city's hum below. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt peace. Not because life had gotten easier, but because he'd finally seen that kindness had power, even in a world built on steel and pride. The stranger he'd once let in from the storm had changed everything. And maybe, just maybe, he'd done the same for her.